All right, well, good morning, everyone. It's morning. So if you're streaming with us, sorry for the delay. It's just one of those days. So we're continuing looking at this this idea of the Son of Man and where this shows up, where Jesus literally refers to himself as such, as the Son of Man. And, a number of weeks ago we looked at this from Daniel chapter 7 and how that kind of fits into how Jesus sees himself, his role in God's collective journey. And I think one of the things that's interesting for us to remind ourselves of, at least that I have found, Jesus never refers to himself as Jesus or as Jesus Christ, as the Christ, really even as the Messiah. Other people call him that and refer to him as that, but I don't know if he calls himself that. Now, in my brain, it may be a lot more cool and fascinating than it actually is, but the fact that he never refers to himself as that, but he refers to himself as the Son of Man, from assumingly Daniel chapter 7. Now, there are times when people refer to him as that. For instance, in Matthew 16 that we looked at about a month ago, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus' response to that was, you're right, I am. But in terms of his first person referral, he never does that. So what we're going to look at today is we're gonna be in. Yes.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Are you specifically speaking of him, talking about him explicitly referring to himself as that? Because he says it in a roundabout way, like when he says, "Before Moses was, I am."
Yeah.
That's saying I'm God.
Right.
Christ.
Right.
So
Right.
he didn't specifically say that, but that's what the reference is.
Well, I think the difference, though, at least for me, is the reference to being the Messiah or the Christ in terms of prophecy, in terms of the one that's going to come and take away sins and all those kind of things. He definitely refers to himself, and really, I think mostly in the book of John, as deity, as God's Son, the Father and I are one, all those kind of ideas. But in terms of that sacrificial lamb that's going to come, he doesn't seem to do that. Now, I, at least to me, a very good question that I think is important is why not? Why would he not refer to himself as what he is? And it may be it may be a cultural thing. It may just be something they didn't do. I don't know.
He came as a humble servant.
That's true. Yeah.
Claiming that title would be a proud thing to do.
Yeah. And yet, from what we saw in John 5 for a whole paragraph, and I'm going to call it a paragraph because it's what it looks like for us. I am directly sent from the Father. He is my Father. He and I talk. We converse about stuff. I only do what he tells me to do. And not only am I at work, but he's also at work with doing what I am. So there's a very close connection there. And they just didn't call God their Father. And in fact, that's what they got so upset with him about, is alluding to this relationship that he specifically has with Yahweh, not only in terms of a relationship, but also as a son. He's my Father, I'm his son, and we are working together in terms of, saving Israel, doing these healings, the teachings he does, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those are some really, really cool questions. He doesn't refer to himself as Messiah, but he does refer to himself both as deity and in relationship with God, specifically as his son. Yeah.
What I noticed in the South is that there is a tendency for Southerners to basically, when they're teaching,
Yeah. Yeah.
Where in the South, it's just giving you the answers and
Yeah.
expecting it, you're gonna believe it.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely talking my language, because I lived and worked there, and obviously now here. So yeah, I think that's generally true.
So with the Christ, he's allowing people to recognize him by remembering the scriptures and not see certain things. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to steal another.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it may be a dynamic like that where that's the case. He wants people to, I don't know, and you may really be onto something there, because, in John 20, at the end of his book, all the miracles were done for the purpose of seeing that he is the Christ, and as a result of that, believing, as a result of that, having life. And so he's not making a direct linkage to himself as the Christ. He's saying, look what I'm doing, see what I'm teaching, make that decision for yourself, that I am that Christ. I'm telling you I am by what I do, as opposed to just coming right at it, but with the idea of his Christology is more of what he does. He offers himself. He gives his life for mankind, he Messiah, etc. As a deity, as God, he's not giving anything. He just is. So, yeah, great point. That may be very, very, yeah, Carol.
Historically, a lot of people claim to be Messiah.
Yeah,
So if Jesus went around claiming, I'm the Messiah,
yeah. Could discredit or,
it would be more believable for him to make the argument to the people by what he does
Right.
and by showing from previous scripture.
yeah, good point.
So
Good point.
maybe that's so
Yeah.
that the people that actually believe it really believe it.
Right. Yeah. Well, and to that point, too, whenever he would teach, and it was stated, and I don't know how much it was stated, I've never looked at this, that he taught as one with authority and not as a teacher of the law. So he allowed his teaching and he allowed his works to take care of that. You decide in your mind, as opposed to me trying to not just push, but, state that out there. And he probably didn't want to dip in that pool of all the other messiahs and the Christ and et cetera, all the other savers. Why get in there and then prove it in that pool? I'll just do what I do and prove it that way. Yeah, really good point. Yeah, well, you guys may have answered the question for me. Those are really cool. Yeah.
When Jesus was talking to the Samaritan woman, she said they were looking for the Messiah. Didn't he say that I am here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than that,
I don't know that he's ever really said that he was the Messiah.
okay. Yeah, it's John 4.
If you knew who it were that were asking of you to drink of
Yeah.
water, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water? Or you would have asked him?
Yeah. Down in verse 20, what is it, 6? Need to put on my glasses. 26, I think. I know that the Messiah called Christ is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us. I, the one speaking to you, I am he. But two other points here. And we kind of looked at this in John 11. There were a lot of statements made, a lot of content given that wasn't to a crowd, but it was to one or two or three people, which kind of, I don't know, it's just like, why? If it's something that important, and even in terms of the resurrection of Lazarus, how many people were there? I don't think that many, as opposed to like the Sermon on the Mount. So, in this case, he proclaims, or at least he responds to, the Messiah's coming. Well, I'm him, one person in a very solitary area. And the disciples weren't even there yet. You know, they don't come up till later when they rejoin him. So much like in Matthew 16, you know, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And then he says you are right about that. But in terms of him himself actually stating, you know, especially to the crowds, I'm the Messiah. He never does that. And that may very well be the reason, is you don't want to, he's going to kick up a lot of dirt and a lot of dust, but he doesn't want to do it on that topic. He's going to do it actually he's going to do it on what they're doing wrong versus his messiahship. So, but the other one, you know, him calling himself God, him being God, he's not doing anything for them or to them. You know, I mean, I'm a Burns. It's my DNA. It's what I am. So that's not going to change anything. Now, you know, if there was a family running around the United States named Burns and they were doing all kinds of terrible stuff, I might change my name because, you know, you don't want to be connected with them. And to Carol's point, you know, you don't want to be in that pool of people that have done that for however long that happened. So you stick with your God, your relationship with the Father. When people ask you, probably in solitary situations like the woman at the well, like Peter in Matthew 16, you know, yes, you're right. But also in some of these places, not here because this is Samaria, but when he would do a miracle or his messiahship was stated, oftentimes, especially in Jewish areas, you remember what he would say to them? Don't tell nobody. Keep this to yourself. Which always confused me until I think I got an awareness that if you're in a Jewish area, I don't want this known yet. If you're in a Gentile area, doesn't matter. Go out, tell everybody, which is what he tells the woman at Samaria. And she does. She goes and tells people. Now, another aside here is that I find fascinating is this woman goes out, tells her village, they come out, check it out, and then they say, we now believe because we've heard it from him, not because of just what you told us. You go to Acts 8, I think it is, whenever Philip goes to Samaria, and they are, you know, open and ready. And I think I'm connecting the dots accurately here, that they've heard of the Christ, they've seen him, they've experienced him, and so now, I don't know, whatever Acts 8 is, you know, 8, 10, 15 years later, they're very receptive to the gospel, possibly very much because of this woman in this moment in her village. So, yeah. I like asides.
Thinking about the Samaritans, and really the only miracle that he did was he told her about her history. Nobody else saw anything else. And yet you looked at the Jews and everything that they saw. And yet the Samaritans believed. But the Jews didn't. Well, not all of them.
Right. Well, in terms of the Jewish hierarchy. But you know what's also interesting, I don't know, like fascinating thing for me, number 342, is I am fully aware I overuse that term, but it fascinates me that the issue with the Jews was really with the hierarchy in terms of influence, power, and status, and et cetera, seats and place and all those kind of things. You know, with the Samaritans, other than their issue with the Jews, and I love your point, because Jesus doesn't heal anybody, doesn't raise the dead, doesn't do any of those things. He just simply tells her, when she goes back to her village, what does she tell them is her reasoning for believing?
About myself.
Yeah. Man, he just spilled my life out in front of me. The guy doesn't know me. I just met him. And I think, too, that he told her this because not only was she a woman, she was a woman. And she was probably a lower level, whatever you call it, lower status. And yet Jesus, he didn't, I don't know, look down on her, make fun of her. He just simply stated it. You've had this many husbands. The one you're with now is not your husband. So probably said it with love, said it with mercy, said it with kindness, which was probably not something that ever happened to her. So I would imagine going back to them, not only did he tell me everything about myself, and he doesn't know me, but he's a kind man. And he's nice, whatever that meant. And telling them that, and then they came out and they experienced that. So again, I love your point. There's no miracle done. There's just kindness shown. And, how are you going to know this woman's had 5 husbands and the one she's with is not her husband, blah, 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 other than a man that knows these things.
It's shown to a lousy, disgusting, low-life Samaritan.
Yeah. From a Jew.
From a Jew.
Yeah. And it wasn't forced. It wasn't like he wanted, money from her or anything. It was just him being, loving God. And you kind of have to wonder which one blew her away more, the fact that he knew everything or the fact that he was nice to her.
Back to how we present the gospel too. Not in a condemnation way, but in a loving way. And it also talks about restoring one that is strayed in a loving manner.
Galatians 6, I don't know if we talk about that as much as we should. Of course, I'm the preacher, and I don't know that I've mentioned that a lot. But there's a lot packed in there to Galatians 6. If you see one that is straying, go and restore him, but restore him with gentleness, with kindness. Make sure that in that restoration process, you're not being prideful and arrogant, and a jerk to him and just making him feel bad. There's a lot of stuff happening there that deals with love. And no doubt Jesus did Galatians 6 for this woman. He cared for her. He was very gentle. And then as this whole Samaritan village comes out, there's another layer. This whole village comes out of people that are Samaritans. And they're possibly the same status she is, other than, being a woman. And how does he respond to this whole village? Loving and caring and gentle, just like he was with her. And so again, then when Philip comes into town, however many years it is after this, he comes into town with the message of Jesus, the message of the Messiah. What is their response? Man, all we hear is good things about this guy. All these oral stories they tell, and they're ready for the message. That, we know him. Wonderful man. Bring him. Tell us about Jesus, because they're ready. So that, no doubt, I think to your second point, is for us, that's how you share the gospel. You first start with kindness, with love, with gentleness. Tell them about Jesus and that he is the Messiah.
Let's say I'm terrible at getting it into the right location, but I think it's Corinthians. That it's the love of Christ that compels people.
Yeah.
It's not the fear of condemnation. It's not the fear of hell. It's Christ's love that actually brings people to him.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, and this is a very much an aside. I think over the years, especially in the South, that has really hurt churches in terms of not just like in moments, but like over decades. That the fear of something versus I want a relationship with Jesus. I want to walk with God. I want to know forgiveness. I want to have that, that connection with God, as opposed to I don't want to go to hell. I want this as opposed to not wanting this. And that's created some challenges for sure, because then people come to not know Jesus. They just don't want to go to hell, which is a whole nother topic. Okay, any other asides? These are always very, very cool for me. I think we learn a lot from walking into those weeds.
Somewhere recently, maybe it was here, but I'm not sure. The threat of hell and the promise of heaven is the carrot and stick idea. And both of those are manipulation.
Yeah.
Neither of those is based in love.
Yeah.
It's a way of convincing people to do things that they don't really want to do. And that's not what the message of Christ is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I can remember, now this is how I was trained. So this was, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago, sitting with people and studying with them and sharing the gospel with them. But then, offering to them, if you were to die tonight, where would you go? And again, my heart was totally pure in sharing that with them. But it was at the end of the day, if you died tonight, where would you go? Well, I think I'd go to hell. Well, then let's get you in the water so that won't happen. And nothing necessarily wrong with that. The problem is I don't want to, scare them into something. I want to hope them into something of a walk with God, and et cetera, et cetera.
Baptism, you declare your belief in Jesus,
Yeah.
not your fear of hell.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you want them to go towards something, which is hope and peace and forgiveness and mercy. Yeah, exactly. Which I don't know that we necessarily highlight and emphasize enough, is that this is all about reconciliation with our Father, with God, and even to a degree with each other, because of the blood of Christ and all that. So, yeah.
Definition of religion has changed from 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
I looked it up once, and it actually means realign with God.
Okay.
Like it was back then.
Okay.
And now, I'm not sure that when you talk religion, people don't look at it that way or not.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this is something that interests you guys or not, but I have probably a very weird sense of interest in words. So there's a website out there. Again, this is if you're interested. If you're not, it's like whatever. Online etymology dictionary. And so you can go onto this, put in a word, and it will give you both the grammar of it, noun, verb, whatever, but it'll also break it down and tell you where the Latin, what that word means in Latin. And so the word religion itself means devotion, or like a religious community. There it is. Religion: respect for what is sacred, reverence for the gods, conscientiousness, sense of right, moral obligation, etc. So I think the word itself is actually reverence for the gods. I mean, literally the words, when you break them up, reverence for the gods. Sometimes we can have a kind of a challenging idea of religion, because we're thinking of, different religions, like specifically whether it's worldly, Hinduism, Buddhism, those kind of things, or whether it's within either the Christian or the Protestant or whatever areas. But the word comes from that idea. Which God do you revere, reverence? Our religion is Jehovah, right? Is Yahweh. And I can give you that website if you're interested in that. You may not be, and you may never use it again. But some people will bring up a word, and I'm like, oh, dude, that's cool, and I'll look it up, and only matters to me. Doesn't matter to anybody else. Yeah.
Then, in the context of true religion, is to honor orphans and widows. I mean,
Right.
you're not worshiping them.
Yeah. So now I gotta look that up. Thanks, Ty. No, that's interesting, because now I got to go to James 1 and see what that word is. Pure religion. What is that word? Because that needs to be. Yeah. Pure reverence. Yeah. Absolutely. That's right. Okay, so well, any other asides? We got about 3 minutes. No, well, I've talked to preachers over the years that are, well, I was going to say more OCD than I am. They're OCD, and I'm not, obviously. And man, they get into a Bible class, and I know all of you guys have experienced some, and they got a route, and they're going to get there. And I obviously am not that guy. I very much like discussion. I like to get other people's thoughts, because I not only do I know that I don't know everything, but I don't know everything. And there's a lot of things that you guys bring that is, to me, really, 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 really cool.
Frustrated by a teacher in that position who says, well, there's a lot more to this particular verse, but we need to move on. Why? There's a lot more. Let's talk about it.
There's a lot more. Let's dive in. Let's go there. Well, and my hope is that you guys enjoy this, because some guys will get in the book of John or get the book of Acts or whatever book, and it's like in the next 3 months we're going to get through this book, and but then you come into those situations where it's like, man, there's so many layers, and somebody may think of something, and 5 minutes later somebody else thinks of something, and we're really churning through this and learning and growing, as opposed to, okay, we're going to look at Matthew chapter 9, verse 3 right now, and we've got 5 minutes to dig into this. And then once that 5 minutes hits, we're moving on. To me, that's not Bible study, and that's not learning and growing and, helping each other in that way. So, yeah. So next week, Lord willing, we'll get into Matthew chapter 9 and look at this part of the Son of Man and what happens here. Let's see. Okay, we'll hold off on that. September the 17th, which I know is not quite a month away or 2 months away, we're going to be having the youth rally here. And so that Sunday we will not be having a Bible class. We'll do our normal singing Sunday, which I need to visit with you about that. Just threw that out there before I talked to Mr. Doug. Yeah, or whatever. Yeah. So, any other thoughts? So the last comment, and then we're done, is I really appreciate y'all's comments and your thoughts and throwing them out there, and they really encourage me and they help me to grow. So thank you for doing that. Let's close with a prayer. Loving God, we just continue to thank you, be in awe of who you are, that you presented this information for us to learn and to grow. And Father, there's always more levels. There's always more things to learn and to get into. We thank you for giving us the wisdom and the discernment. And Father, give us the want to continue to do this.